Welcome back to another one of Mr. Wildcat's Married Children Reviews. I am your host, Mr. Wildcat, and today we're all in for a very special treat. On the day that this review is dropping, Mr. Wildcat's parents are celebrating a very famous milestone, their 50th wedding anniversary. 50. Yep, they were married August 18th, 1973, at the First Presbyterian Church in Youngstown, New York, a small village up in the Niagara County in the northwestern corner of the Western New York region. Okay, and then just to the north of that is a very famous site called Fort Niagara. Okay, which sits on the far northwest corner of Lake Ontario, where Lake Ontario and the Niagara River intersect with each other. So, Niagara River, it spills into, okay, so you have Niagara River here, you have New York over here, you have Ontario over here, and at the terminus, you have it terminates. So, it's on this very far corner over here, okay? Many of you guys may not be familiar with Lake Ontario, so let me share a brief history about it. It was built in 1678 and is a fortification originally built by New France to protect its interests in North America, specifically control of access between the Niagara River and Lake Ontario, the easternmost of the five Great Lakes. The fort is on the river's eastern bank at its mouth on Lake Ontario. Youngstown, New York, later developed nearby. Okay. British took over the fort in 1759 during the French and Indian War, although the United States was ostensibly ceded the, fo- the fort after it gained independence in the American Revolutionary War. The British stayed until 1796. Transfer to the U.S. came after the signing of the Jay Treaty that reaffirmed and implemented the legal border with British Canada, although the United States Army deactivated the fort in 1963. The Coast Guard continues to have a presence here. A nonprofit group operates the fort and grounds as a state park and preserves it in part as a museum and site for historical reenactments. It is also a venue for special events related to the region's history. Now, you're probably wondering, how in the hell were my parents lucky enough to get their wedding reception at Fort Niagara? Well, my grandmother, on my mother's side, happened to have had a very strong presence at Fort Niagara. And she did a lot of and while my grandfather was alive, my grandmother did a lot of volunteer work at Fort Niagara. And I don't want to go much into detail, but she basically bragged about at one point she did brag about how my aunt was one day going to take over the fort and forced my aunt to go into travel and tourism instead of the culinary field which she originally wanted to go into. Okay. My grandmother passed away 7.5 years ago, and it's a passing that's still bitter to this day. However, she lives forever in my heart, and was very gracious to have gotten to know her. Okay, I have actually taken a couple of field trips myself to Fort Niagara when I was in grade school. My last visit to Fort Niagara was in the summer of 2000, between the seventh and eighth grades. Okay, it was the summer right before we moved out to Arizona. Okay, so today we are going to be reviewing a very famous wedding themed episode of Married Children in celebration of my parents' wedding anniversary. Today we are going to be reviewing 25 Years and What Do You Get? Another Married Children episode out of season 9. Okay. This one, let's see. This is the episode that aired right before the two-parter Ship Happens, which was the last review that we had just done. It is the 25 Years and What Do You Get is the 17th episode to come out of season 9, recorded on January 27th, 1995. Original air date February 12th, 1995. Okay, this is also coined as the official 200th episode of Married Children. All right. out of 259. So it's another special milestone, might I add. Okay? So let's dig into the episode, shall we? We start off in the Bundy household where Peggy is sitting there watching Oprah. No, right here. Okay. And we hear a narrative on the TV. Today on Oprah, qualified experts speak rationally about relevant social issues. What? Just kidding. Today's topic, sluts who hang out at 7-Eleven. Now, of course, Peggy's applause in this particular scene right here. This is her opening credits sequence for seasons 10 and 11 of Married Children, in case you have not yet noticed. Today's topic, sluts who hang out at 7-Eleven. Then Marcy comes in. Congratulations, Peg! Basically, congratulates Peggy on her 25th wedding anniversary and tells Peggy that she is in for a very special anniversary present. Peggy, Marcy has bought Peggy and herself a full day's package. Okay, a full day at the all day soak and poke package at one of Chicago's finest massage parlors, Antoine's Under the L. The all day soak and poke package. And of course, Peggy is very resistant at first, saying, I don't want strangers touching my body. They will be men. Oh, then what are we waiting for? Of course, Peggy then also brags about how she's going to buy Al a wedding gift, a wedding anniversary present. Michael Jordan's most recent pair of socks, signed and unwashed, for $500. Of course, back then, Michael Jordan was still playing for the Chicago Bulls, and he's had at least 3 NBA championships under his belt by this point. Okay, so Marcy and Peggy, they leave the house to go to Antoine's Under the L for the all-day poke and soak package. Al and Jefferson, they come in through the back door. Okay, I think it's the one time we actually see them use this one particular door that is being used for this episode. Okay, they were waiting for Peggy and Marcy to leave, which took forever. But then, of course, after they finally left, Al was finally able to retrieve his anniversary gift to Peggy, which he had in a very clever spot. A one of these big stove pots in the kitchen. Okay, Peggy doesn't cook, so there you have it. Okay, so it's basically a very fancy diamond necklace, which is a part of Al's plans to avoid having sex with the wife. Al's plan is to take Peggy out for to dinner at Denny's, where she's going to have the all-you-can-eat popcorn shrimp. She's going to stuff herself with so much popcorn shrimp she'll lift to one side. All-you-can-eat popcorn shrimp at first. Furs is a competing restaurant. I don't even know if that still exists. It doesn't exist here in Tucson anymore. But I remember like over 20 years ago they had these TV commercials. All you can eat popcorn shrimp at Furs. Okay, and then and then right before she belches "I love you" to Al, he's gonna present her with the necklace. And then the combination between the popcorn shrimp, the necklace, and the NyQuil Mickey, which he plans on slipping into Peggy's pina colada. Do they sell pina coladas at Denny's? I highly doubt it. They don't even serve beer. So, but anyway, back to the episode. They're gonna basically Peggy's gonna pass out, and it'll allow Al to watch midget wrestling, and the only hands down Al's pants will be his own. Carl, are you playing with yourself? No. Yeah. Anyway, takes the present and hides it underneath the couch cushion. Bud and Kelly then walk into the house. They have just taken Buck for a walk, and apparently Buck mistook one of their neighbors for a fire hydrant and starts humping her leg. And nevertheless, and of course Buck probably got too excited. He probably spurted his semen all over the lady's leg. Nevertheless, there's a cleaning bill and a court date coming for Al because of Buck. Okay? Al then lectures to Bud and Kelly about um, when he used to be young. Buck basically he overhears something about some wisecracks from the family about him being old and senile, and he wants to prove them wrong. He wants to bury a bone and then dig it up. Okay? So he basically finds something. It looks like a bone to Buck, but it's actually the necklace, the box for the necklace. Takes it, hides it, and takes it with him in the backyard while Al is still talking. So he's no. So basically, it is. Okay, Al does not even know what's going on. Okay, perfect distraction. Then we head over to Antoine's Under the L, which at this point, Marcy and Peggy have taken their clothes off. We're not. No, this is not an X-rated episode. They've actually. Okay, we don't see them naked. Good, because I think I'm gonna heave if I do. No, they actually have bathrobes on, waiting for their masseuses to come and sweep them off their feet. Is probably the best way of saying it. And basically, Marcy's guy comes first, Sven. She introduces him to Peggy. Peggy thinks that he's for her. She starts to take off her robe to flash herself in front of him. No, 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 no. Sven's mine. Your guy Chance will be coming in just a moment. Are you ready for your cactus prickling? Okay. Then we have another guy who comes out. Peggy mistakes him for Chance, but no, it's Dave. He's straight and he runs the gift shop. Why would you now? Why would Dave say he's straight? Probably because the both of the masseuses that we actually see in this episode, they act like they're gay. Not there's anything wrong with that, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But basically, while she's waiting for Chance to come, Dave invites Peggy into his office over at the gift shop, where he basic first he mistakes Peggy for what Peggy says it's her 25th wedding anniversary. Dave mistakes it for her 25th birthday. I'll take five. Well, wait a minute, I haven't shown anything to you yet. Oh, yes, you have. Okay. So then he's basically trying to persuade Peggy instead of these cactus pricklings and spine twisting things that you hear Marcy screaming about in the back room. She's afraid of being put in horrible pain. Dave offers Peggy a series of creams. Okay, and the first one is for $50. Okay, and of course, Chance finally comes out, says, Miss Bundy, I'm here for you. Okay, and then she says, in a minute. What else do you have? Okay, so Chance gets excused for at least a little bit. Okay, then we head back to the house, which at this point, Buck has basically got himself. He dug himself so deep into the backyard. He's bringing dirt into the house, and he basically, Bud and Kelly are having to sit there and clean off all the dirt off of him. Bad dog. Then Al comes in a very crappy looking tuxedo, rainbow colored bow tie, and rainbow colored waistband around his waist. Does it come with the matching Urkel glasses? Laugh all you want. Shut up. Okay. With the money I saved, I basically only cost Al $8 for a rental. With the money that he saved on the rental, he was able to buy Peggy. He was able to buy Peggy this. A Harry Abby Zabba. Ugh. All right, kids. What have you done with Mommy's necklace? We don't know, Dad. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to tell you kids, one time and one time only. If I don't get that necklace, I can't give it to your mother. If I can't give it to your mother, I have to give it to your mother. And if I have to give it to your mother, I'm going to give it to you. Okay? He is under the impression that Bud and Kelly played a joke on Al and hid and took the diamond necklace that was meant for Peggy. But of course, neither Bud or Kelly knows anything about the necklace. Okay? And of course, Bud said, and then Buck, he says, "Uh-oh, I buried something like that in the backyard. Better go get it." But then, of course, he only comes back with the red ribbon, which at that point, Al stops yelling at the kids when Bud points out to Al, "Hey, Dad, wait a second. Isn't that the ribbon from the box?" "It is, but there's no diamond necklace." "It is the ribbon, but where's the fucking necklace?" He then goes right up to Buck with his feet right up against him. And of course, we only see Al's feet, but of course we know what's going to happen. Okay, Buck's saying, "I'm invisible." Damn, the ribbon gave it away, didn't it? And then we know what Al's thinking. "Well, Buck, where's my fucking necklace?" Okay. We then head to the backyard. Buck is just sitting there lying on the ground. While Al, Kelly, and Bud, they're trying to get Buck to find where this necklace is. They eventually decide to start digging. Okay. Kelly comes across Grandma Wanker's fruitcake from last Christmas. Al comes across one of Bud's old rubber women. How pathetic! Guys burying things in the backyard, and then Al finds the rubber woman. Damn dog! And for those of you who saw the My Rubber Woman and need a rim job, she unfortunately has passed. So okay, we've had like some okay. Apparently got poked somehow. Got wound up getting poked the wrong way, and is no longer inflatable. So you won't be seeing any more of her. Okay. But anyway, going back to this episode, you see Bud sitting there He's sitting there lying on the ground, and he has two fantasizes. He has his father, and then his mother. They say, "Buck, come into the light." "Dad, Mom." Okay. We then head back to Antoine's Under the L. At this point, Peggy has bought $300 worth of creams and moisturizers from Dave's gift shop. Okay. Then Chance comes over to Peg and says, Miss Bundy, it's getting late. We need to get this massage done. It's time for your spine pull. And then we hear Marcy scream in the back, yeah! Okay, here, Chance. Here's $5. Go buy yourself some pogs. Thanks, Mrs. Bundy. Then, of course, Dave's already showing Peggy everything that he has to offer, but she wants more. She points at the brown paper bag that's sitting next to Dave, and of course, that's his lunch. But then he tries to, knowing the salesman that he inadvertently sells his lunch to Peggy under the disguise of it being famous cosmetics used by her favorite TV show host. What's your favorite TV show? Oprah? Oh, what a coincidence. Oprah uses this line too. Okay? Basically, you have a tuna and mayo sandwich wrapped up in the thing there. You have cookies disguised as a like facial discs. Okay. Then Marcy comes out on a she's she's conscious, but she's completely worn out. She's basically on a wheelchair with her head like this. Peggy, I can't move my eyes up, but you look great. Can we go get Al's present now? I can't. I spent it all on myself. So Peggy took the $500 that she was supposed to use to buy Al's present and wasted it on all this stuff for herself from the gift shop. Okay. So then they decided to go home, and Peggy's planning on pretending that nothing. If Elle doesn't mention it, I'm not going to mention it. Okay. That will get her out of having to give him an anniversary present. Okay. Back at the house, we have a huge hole in the ground. And then Peggy comes home. And then Elle decides. And then Elle decides, if I don't mention it to Peg, maybe she won't mention it either. Okay? So he basically gets on the couch and they basically start having a conversation with each other, and they basically talk about having a happy nothing out of the ordinary day. Okay? Then they decide to go up and have some sex for no reason whatsoever. Okay? Just as Elle and Peg make their way up the stairs, Buck comes in with the necklace. I did it. I found it. I found the necklace. It was in my bowl. I didn't bury it. It was in my bowl. Funny how nobody spotted it under the two pieces of kibbles. Kibbles and bits. Kibbles and bits. We're going to get us some kibbles and bits. You ever seen those old dog commercials? Kibbles and bits. Kibbles and bits. We're going to get us some kibbles and bits. Then one of Buck's bitches comes in, BB, and it's their anniversary. Happy anniversary, Buck. Did you get anything from me? Who are you? It's me, BB. Oh, it's you, BB. I never noticed you from this side before. Oh, you're so funny. Can I buy you a drink or lead you to a toilet? You are so funny, Buck. Then they wind up going up. Then they inadvertently go up the stairs. And just as Buck is going up the stairs, Buck gets halfway up the stairs before the camera freezes, and that is the end of the episode. All right. See, I didn't really have much to talk about. Okay, in terms of the synopsis. Okay. So why don't we go through the trivia for this episode, shall we? So the episode title is a play on the lyrics, you load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. It is a song. It is from the song 16 Tons by Tennessee Ernie Ford. Okay? And it also corresponds with Al and Peggy's celebrating their 25 years of marriage. Okay? The episode also shares a similar title origin from the season 1 episode 16 Years in What Do You Get? So in that we reviewed that episode last August in celebration of my parents' wedding anniversary for last year. And in that episode, Al decides to buy Peggy a very expensive watch. And word leaks out to Peggy that Al's going to buy the watch, and she gets so excited, she decides to make it a huge deal, and winds up taking the credit card and buying. She winds up buying all this very expensive stuff, expensive caterer, wedding gifts. Okay, Kelly's present to the parents, the picture frame, Al's tool set, the caterer. All right, just to name a few. The violinist. She stuffed the credit card so much that by the time Al tried to go charge the watch, the card got rejected. And he's trying to figure out why. And then after he gets home, after having the conversation, said, in fact, the only person who didn't get my, in fact, the only person who didn't get the only person who did get paid was mine to you. And you want to know why? Because maybe you stuffed the credit card so much that when I tried to use it, it threw up. Blah! That's part of the whole episode. And then it winds up ending with war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, yeah. War. What is it good for? All right. So there is another wedding anniversary episode that comes out in season 10, called "The Agony and the Extra C," and that'll be an episode that I will be reviewing sometime down the road. Okay, it is not a Bundy themed wedding anniversary episode. It's actually a Darcy wedding anniversary. Okay, of course in that one Peggy is not at home because she's basically out in Europe trying to track down her father to come home and get Grandma Wanker out of their house. Okay, but that's an episode for another day. Okay. At one point, Al comes home with a jacket that reads Farquhar's Formals on the back. It is a nod to Ralph R. Farquhar, who had served as producer, writer, and executive story editor for the series. Okay? Besides the title, the episode shares the same topic as season 1, 16 Years and What Do You Get? Al and Peggy celebrate their wedding anniversary, and they also try to get each other a special gift. But things don't go as planned. We've already talked about that. Marcy boasted that she has taken Peggy to Antoine's under the L. The L, or EL, they both mean elevated, refers to the Chicago Rapid Transit line, while saying under the L may imply that it is located in a poor area. Al had previously mentioned that the family would have to sleep under the L in season two's You Better Watch Out. Okay. Bud sees Al in a rented tuxedo whose legs are too short and asks, did it come with the matching Urkel glasses? Making a reference to Steve Urkel, who came from the the ABC sitcom Family Matters, and his typical nerdy fashion. So those of you not familiar with Family Matters, okay, I have to admit here, okay, it's been mentioned a handful of times throughout Married Children's history. American television sitcom debuted on ABC in September 22nd, 1989, ended May 9th, 1997. The show moved over to CBS, where it was shown from September 19th, 1997 through July 17th, 1998. It was also a spin-off of Perfect Strangers. A series revolves around the Winslow family, an African-American middle-class family living in Chicago, Illinois. Midway through the first season, the show introduced the Winslow's nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White, who was originally scripted to appear as a one-time character. However, he quickly became the show's breakout character and eventually main character, joining the main cast. Running for 9 seasons, Family Matters became the second longest running live-action U.S. sitcom with a predominantly African-American cast behind only The Jeffersons at 11 seasons, airing. Okay, Family Matters aired for 215 seasons, 215 episodes, being ranked third behind only Tyler Perry's House of Pain, which has produced over 280 episodes as of 2021, as well as The Jeffersons at 253. Family Matters was the last live-action scripted primetime show to debut in the 80s that left the air. Okay, debut in the 80s to leave the air. The only scripted show that started in the 80s to have lasted longer in continuous production is The Simpsons, which to this date is still on the air. Okay, and that's speaking of The Simpsons. Okay, Simpsons have made it to 750 episodes. They are okay. Season 35. They've done 34 seasons of The Simpsons and 750 episodes worth. Season 35 is slated to premiere on October 1st, 2023. Okay? Show is slated to last a 36 season. Okay? Has been The Simpsons has been renewed for a 36 season, which will take the show through the summer of 2025. Okay? It's a show. I love The Simpsons and all, but its prime days are long gone. It's a show that should have left the air long, long ago. Okay. After showing off what he was able to buy, after showing off what he was able to buy after getting a cheap tuxedo, Bud comments on the hairy Abba Zaba. Abba Zaba is a brand of candy made from taffy with a peanut butter center. So Abba Zaba, yep, just as I suspected. We sell Abba Zaba, okay. Now we sell Abba Zabas in our Sam's Club down here in Tucson, except they're sold by the case. Now, of course, I'm not willing to buy. Okay, you can forget about me buying one of those because I'm not willing. Okay, I'm not gonna candy in our store. Candy bars in our store. They range anywhere from cases of candy. They go anywhere from 15 to $50 for a case, depending on what type of candy it is, of course. I'm not going to spend that much money on candy bars that I may or may not like. So, like, we do sell them, but don't ask me to try one out for you. All right? Maybe if I see one in the supermarket when I go to check out, but of course I go through the self checkout, so who knows whether or not I will be able to find it there. Okay? Al mentions that he will be taking Peggy to the family restaurant diner Denny's for their anniversary. I've already talked about Denny's in my previous episode, but Denny's has been referenced at least 8 times throughout the show's history. This is, I think, like the fifth or sixth time it has been mentioned. Al also mentions that he'll be giving Peggy a NyQuil Mickey slipped into her pina colada so he can have the rest of the night to himself and watch midget wrestling. Okay, Mickey is short for Mickey Finn, refers to a drink that has been laced with either a psychoactive or incapacitating drug and given to an unsuspecting person. In this case, Al mentioned that he would be mixing it in with NyQuil, which is the brand name of a nighttime cold and cough medicine, with ingredients that can make a person drowsy and fall asleep faster. Midget wrestling was also mentioned in season 1, 16 years, and what do you get? Part of the original plan for the anniversary evening when Peggy tells Steve and Marcy of their plans in that episode. Okay, several products that Dave sells to Peggy are named after celebrities and food products. Okay, we have the Margaret Cho chin wrap. Okay, those of you wondering who Margaret Cho is. Okay, born December 5th, 1968, is a American comedian and actress, best known for her role on the ABC sitcom All American Girl, which aired from '94 to '95, and this is probably where the reference wind up coming in from Margaret Cho. Okay, Tommy Lee Jones, Cradle Spackle. All right. The Tommy Lee Jones Cradle Spackle. Okay. Tommy Lee Jones, okay, born September 15th, 1946, is an American actor and film director. He wound up starring in a series of films. Um, while fame somewhat eluded him for much of the 70s and 80s, he established himself as a leading man in the 90s. Most notably, his role in he wound up winning an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role as U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerald in the 1993 film The Fugitive, which is a movie adaptation of the 60s drama series bearing the same name. He also appeared as Clay Shaw in the 1991 film JFK. He also played Congressman Thaddeus Stevens in the 2012 film Lincoln. He also He also played Agent K in the Men in Black franchise. Other notable film roles include, but are not limited to, Coal Mine's Daughter, Natural Born Killers, The Client, Batman Forever, Double Jeopardy, No Country for Old Men, The Countrymen, Captain America: The First Avenger, Jason Bourne, and Ed Astra. All right. Tommy Lee Jones is also a graduate of Harvard University. And one thing I would like to add, Tommy Lee Jones was at one time roommates with former U.S. Vice President Al Gore, who was Bill Clinton's vice president from 1993 to 2001, and before that was a U.S. senator from Tennessee. And although he made a run for the presidency in 2000, he came just short of the finish line, losing to Texas Governor George W. Bush, which he wound up serving 2 full terms. Al Gore has not been seen in recent years. Although he wind up starring in that documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. I'm Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States. I don't find that funny at all. Moving on, shall we? All right. So let's see. Famous Amos facial discs. Okay. Famous Amos is it's a brand of cookies founded in Los Angeles in 1975 by Wally Amos, a former talent agent with William Morris Agency. Okay. The chocolate chip ones are the best. All right, if you don't mind me saying that. Okay. Last but not least, the Baby Ruth Body Balm. Okay. Baby Ruth, founded in 1921, is an American candy bar made of peanuts, caramel, and milk chocolate covered nougat, covered in compound chocolate. Distributed by the Fiera Candy Company, a subsidiary of Fiero. Okay. Nabisco purchased the candy bar in 1981, and it was later sold to Nestle, where it's now sold under the Nestle name. Okay. Now, many people think that this candy bar was named after the famous baseball player Babe Ruth of the New York Yankees. However, it is widely known to be named after Grover Cleveland's daughter, Ruth Cleveland. Okay? Don't get that mixed up, guys. Okay? Peg gives Chance $5 and tells him to go buy himself some Pogs. Pogs is the commercialized name used for a children's game originally known as Milk Caps that originated in Hawaii. At the time this episode was filmed, there was a big craze for Pogs amongst children in the mainland United States, but eventually faded out of popularity by the late 90s. Of course, growing up in the 90s, I never collected Pogs. I was not that I have seen Pogs, but I wasn't really into them. All right. So sorry to disappoint you guys on that one. Okay. So that's one more thing I would like to talk about. Actor Marty Rackham, who plays Dave, the guy who sells Peggy all this crap in his gift shop. But before we do, okay, Mr. Wildcat has to take he has to take some medication for a horrible back pain that he's been having the last 2 weeks. Gotta take it every 12 hours, and who knows how long this video is gonna last. Okay. So anyway, Marty Rackham, he plays the guy Dave, the guy who sells um, Peggy all this crap in his gift shop. I know him best for his roles on Seinfeld. All right. He appeared on 4 different episodes of. For those of you who are Seinfeld fanatics, you will probably agree with me on this. So he actually appeared on 4 episodes of Seinfeld. Okay. His first appearance was in season 4 episode The Trip, part 2. Now, of course, this was technically a 3-part episode, starting with The Keys, season 3 finale episode The Keys, and then tying into that 2-parter The Trip that started off season 4. So to give you an idea of what's going on here, so basically, in The Keys, okay, Jerry and Kramer, they live across the hall from each other, all right, and they gave their spare apartment keys to one another. So in the case they get locked out of their apartment, their neighbor can get them back in. Okay. But by the time we get to the keys, Kramer had he had apparently abused his key privileges with Jerry, and they got to the point where Jerry demanded his keys back and told Kramer that he was no longer to be trusted with them. Kramer got so upset over this, he packed up and he moved out to Los Angeles to pursue a acting career, which unfortunately did not go as planned. The best he was able to do was a guest appearance on a TV show called Murphy Brown, which we saw at the end of the Keys episode. But by the time we get into the 2-parter Trip, he had been unemployed and he's been unable to secure further acting career acting gigs since. Okay? So in that Trip episode, Jerry gets tickets. He gets a free trip for 2 to Los Angeles, where he is scheduled to appear on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He has an extra ticket and asks George Costanza to go along with him. Okay? Which he does, especially after hearing that all expenses are paid. While in the NBC studios, shortly after Jerry does his appearance on The Tonight Show, they're walking down the hall, and Jerry and George see this news report on the television where Kramer had been arrested, being accused of being a serial killer. Now, apparently, at the time of this 2-parter, there had been a big series of murders happening throughout the LA metro. And somehow Kramer's name got tangled into the mix. So they arrest him on suspicion of these murders. And once but of course he got released because while he was being interrogated by the detective who was assigned to this case and stuff, somebody else got murdered while Kramer was in custody. So Kramer basically got out on the loose. But basically, at the beginning of part 2 of that that 2-parter Trip episode, Jerry and George are they're trying to head out to the police department to try to convince them that Kramer is not the serial killer. And they, not knowing where they are or where to go, they dispense a police car out to where they are located and escort Jerry and George out to the police department. And one of the police officers in that car was Marty Rackham. Marty Rackham, yep. Okay. Marty also played 3 additional episodes later on in the show's run. He appeared as Elaine's some-called boyfriend, Jake Jarmel. Okay, Jake Jarmel was first introduced in The Sniffling Accountant from season 5. Towards the beginning of season 5 in The Sniffling Accountant, where in that episode, Jake Jarmel, he was basically publishing a book, and Elaine was assigned to proofread it. And they basically started a relationship with each other. He even had Jake move into the apartment with her, okay, where he basically was starting dinner as she was walking in, and even took down phone messages. But the problem was that one of the phone messages, one of Elaine's friends was having a baby, and Elaine had a very serious issue that Jake did not put an exclamation point on the phone message. Okay, Jake being completely completely absurd with Elaine's insane obsession with exclamation points. He said, well, "Why don't you put an exclamation point on this one? I'm leaving." So apparently they break up, and while proofreading the book, Elaine slaps exclamation points all over the goddamn place in the notes and stuff. And it apparently had gotten to the attention of her boss, Mr. Lipman, to where she gets called in the office and says, "What's with all these exclamation points? Get these out of here. They do not belong here." Okay? Jake then comes back at the end of season 5 in the episode The Opposite, in which George and Elaine's lives, they basically go to a complete opposite of each other. Elaine starts off on top, and George starts off on the bottom. And then by the end of the episode, completely reversed, where Elaine is now down at the bottom and George is at the top. And because Jerry's friends with both of them, it evens things out for him. Elaine has a job. She's just gotten a promotion with Pendant Publishing, and they were basically being merged in with a Japanese company, which will basically keep her working and out of unemployment. And apparently, around the same time, Mr. Lippman had gotten sick with a very bad cold and hovering a handkerchief. Okay, Jake Jarmel and Elaine, they both got back together. Okay, but and Elaine was at the movie theater waiting for him. They were going to go see a movie together. So while waiting for Jake to show up, Elaine gets a phone message from Jake saying he was in an accident and he's at the hospital. So Elaine goes out to see him, but before leaving the theater, stops off at the snack counter and says, "Could I have a box of Juji Fruits?" Stops off and buys a box of Juji Fruits. And she's munching on the Juji Fruits while visiting Jake. She basically asks, like, "Where did you get those?" "At the movies." "Didn't the usher give you the message before you went in?" "Yeah." "Then when did you buy those?" "Right after that." "So you heard I was in a car accident and you decided to stop off for some Juji Fruits?" "The counter was right there." "I assumed under normal circumstances it would have you running right out of the building. It obviously didn't have any impact on you." No, it did. If you got into a car accident, I can guarantee you I wouldn't stop for Juji Fruits." "But Jake," I want to be alone now." "Jake, good night." And that ends the relationship once and for all. And then when she goes whining off to Jerry about it, his response is, "Well, maybe the next time someone's in a car accident, you won't stop off for candy first." And of course, towards the end of the episode, Mr. Lim is supposed to meet with these Japanese men that are in charge of the company that they're merging with. They're in Lipman's office to finalize the deal. And of course, he leaves his handkerchief on Elaine's desk in the office. And of course, Elaine can't tell Mr. Lipman about where the juji, okay, about the handkerchief, because her mouth is so full of Juji Fruits, you can't even hear where that's coming out of her mouth. And before he realizes it's too late, he sneezes and he basically winds up stuck in the meeting. He says, "I can't shake you. I don't want to. I'm a little sick right now. I don't want to give you my germs." And it basically comes out and when it's being interpreted, it basically comes out as, "Mister, we don't want to do business with you." and the deal falls through. Pendant Publishing gets shut down. Mr. Lippman and Elaine are both out of a job. Not to mention Kramer's coffee table book, which was in production at the time. Okay. Jake's last episode of Seinfeld comes in season 6 with the scofflaw. Okay. He apparently had got a new book deal with a new publishing company, which Mr. Lippman was working for. Mr. Lippman was working for, he basically started up a new publishing company, and this was one of the books that basically was going to start, that was supposed to start his career off again. Okay. And apparently, he was doing a book sign at Walden Books. Kramer went to go visit him and asked him where he got his glasses. Jake was so cocky, basically says, "I'm not going to tell you because I don't want anybody else to have them." And then when Elaine finds out that Kramer told Jake that Elaine said hello, Elaine went down to the bookstore to basically fix the record straight. And of course, Jake was such a cocky guy too in the whole situation. Then, while riding on the street in a taxi, she winds up seeing some guy on the street with the same glasses that Jake has, and buys them from him in order to get back at him. Okay, she heads back to the bookstores. "Hey, Jake, see, you're not the only one who has these. Where did you get those?" "Malaysia. I was in the area." And then at the end of that episode, Jake Jarmel, okay, he's up on the stage to present he's at a press conference for his book, and Mr. Lippman, who's the publisher, he pulls out. Apparently, Elaine had given Mr. Lippman these glasses, the pair of glasses, and Jake is so offended. "Where'd you get those? Is this supposed to be some kind of joke? Because it's not funny at all. Give me those glasses. Give me." They fight each other over the glasses, and apparently the book apparently fails. The Mr. Lippman's publishing company falls through, evidently because Elaine was promised a job if the book was to make success, which apparently it didn't because of this press conference. So that's the last we ever see of Jake Jarmel. He probably would have made a good appearance on the series finale, but of course there's only so many people you could have on there, and you only have so much time to include on there. So that's all I want to talk about in regards to 25 years and what do you get. So, what are my okay? What are my basically okay? Okay. So I'm going to start my review off. I'm going to start my observation off. Okay, there's an audio clip I'm going to play for you from the Married Children podcast of this episode. Luigi and Team Australia, Matt and Annabelle, who were part of Team Australia, they were part of this review. I'm going to play about a 2-minute clip of this review, and I'm going to show you the significance of it. Okay? Hopefully you can hear it through here.
Meat byproduct of a dog's mum. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, like, is that from like a movie or something? Like, Come Into the Light?
Yeah, I don't know if they're referencing something in particular.
They did this in The Simpsons a few years back. Santa's little helper come into their lives. So something, reference to something. Yeah, like I just feel like it's something, you know, like in the recesses of my memory, like whether it's a movie or a TV show or something. It's like Come Into the Light.
Yeah, I mean, we know what it's referring to, but where it comes from, I don't know what they're quoting specifically.
Yeah, and it was weak. I mean, because the thing about that is it just felt, I mean, those two particular scenes felt very weak to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, it's, we know that Buck is old, right? But, Like what are they trying to say? It's like that to me like didn't make any like those two scenes made no sense at all. I mean if they're referring to like maybe that Buck will die soon, or maybe what they thought was that it was potentially Buck could die. Like like soon because of his age, so maybe they were like, well, we need to like film some scenes and just prepare it because maybe one day Buck the dog dies and we can't film anymore.
Yeah, that crossed my mind too. I don't know if they're something. Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason behind it is. But what I did find is there's a quote like that from the movie The Poltergeist. And this is where we need our horror film friends.
Yes.
So that 1982 film Poltergeist, which I haven't seen for a long time. But there's a quote in there. It's "Run to the light, Carol Ann. Run as fast as you can. Mummy's in the light. Mummy is waiting for you in the light." I don't know if that's it, but that's all I can find so far.
I think Alex and Jamie would be all over.
Oh yeah.
They would.
I don't know if they still listen to the podcast, but they can tell us. I feel like someone like Mr. Wildcat would say, "Yep, that's definitely the Poltergeist," or something. Some sporting reference or something.
Okay, Carl, that's your challenge if you're listening.
Yeah, he's on it. So yeah, two very odd scenes otherwise. So we.
This is for those of you who listen to the Married Children podcast, the episode I was on with Annabelle, breaking up It's Easy to Do Part 2. You saw me towards the very end mention that to Annabelle, and by that point she probably forgot all about it. But Annabelle, if you are watching, you have proof now of exactly what I was talking about. All right, that was probably my first mentioning on the Married Children podcast. Because by that point, I yet to be approached for a guest host appearance. At that point, I was still commenting. I was just commenting on a weekly basis on their YouTube channel, and they probably had caught on and say, "Oh shit, now the pressure's on me." Because if the most if the most influential person from Married Children has a question that cannot be answered and they ask you to come up with it for them, you better find some way to answer that question. So that was a shout out for that. I do appreciate their consistency. But basically, to answer the questions on that, they asked me if there was any like references or something. Like Matt did mention in the Simpsons, coming to the light. Santa's little helper was having surgery. He had a twisted stomach. He needed an operation, or he was going to die. And basically, while on the operating table, he was basically, "Come into the light, boy. Come on." And then at the very last minute, he gets drawn away and he's brought back to life. Okay. Let's see. I cannot find. I couldn't find any popular references. I have seen Poltergeist, but am not very. But I don't remember in direct lines one by one, except for the one, "They're here." Okay. So basically, the line has more to do with hints that Buck is nearing retirement. There is quotes from the Bible. Okay. Jesus says, "Come into the light, accept me as your Lord and Savior." Okay. "Confess your sins and ask for forgiveness, then I shall set you free." Okay. That's probably as best as I could. That's probably the best of an answer I could provide for Annabelle. Okay. And looking back 2 years, nearly 2 years later, I don't know what else to provide for you. Okay. So, what did my parents do for their 25th wedding anniversary? They went to Casino Niagara, all right, which is on the Canadian side of the falls, a place I've yet to visit. But I'll tell you right now, one of the things on my bucket list down the road is to go back to New York, where where I spent my childhood on, and make one last visit, at least one more. One of the things on my list is go to see Niagara Falls, both the American and Canadian sides. Go up and revisit Fort Niagara, and possibly my old school DeSales. Okay. Basically, they put $20. They went over the Canadian side of the falls, Casino Niagara, and this is before the Seneca Casino was built on the American side. When we lived in New York, um, the Seneca Casino was still known as the Niagara Falls Convention Center, and then the Seneca Nation bought out the convention center, and they converted it into a casino. Okay, most state laws prohibit casinos from being run outside of a Native American territory, or it either has to be held on Native American territory or has to be run by Native Americans. Okay, except for like Atlantic City and the state of Nevada, which are completely opposite of their own. Canada has none of these limits. Okay, so they built the casino Niagara in the later part of the 90s. And my parents, they spent their 25th wedding anniversary putting $20 into the slot machines over there, and then they came back, and then the next day they took us down to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We spent 3 days. We spent 3 days in southern Pennsylvania, touring the battlefields of Gettysburg, and then on our way back to New York, we stopped at the Hershey's Chocolate Factory. Okay, we didn't get to go to the Hershey's Park, but we did get to see the actual chocolate factory. We took a tour of how Hershey's chocolate was actually made. A lot of fun, might I add. Okay, so that was a very fun way for my parents to celebrate their anniversary. Okay, haven't eaten popcorn chicken, popcorn shrimp. They're both they both have the same texture, but they're completely different tastes. All right. And I do know, I have to admit that the one time I did cook popcorn chicken, I actually, not only did I burn it, I set off the fire alarm in my apartment. All right. But like popcorn shrimp um, is quite good, might I add. I don't think Denny's actually has popcorn shrimp, or I know they definitely don't have pina colada. They don't have alcoholic beverages on their menus, or at least the last time I went there, they didn't. And I'm not sure. I highly doubt they have popcorn shrimp. But if you are a frequent diner at Denny's, if you do happen to see popcorn shrimp or pina coladas on the menu, please correct me on that because I didn't see them when I was the last time I was at Denny's. Okay, so apparently the Mary Chilling podcast talked about Princess Diana. I'm going through my comments section on the Mary Chilling podcast feed. So the comments that I left in terms of reviews. So they must have talked about Princess Diana. So basically, in terms of Princess Diana, I just started fifth grade. Okay, and then her death is the first time I actually heard of her. Okay, they spent 2 weeks talking about. Okay, social studies teacher that year, Mr. Weepert, he spent 2 weeks talking about Princess Diana's death, and then later that year we wound up like when the Winter Olympics were being played, we wound up watching the CBC feed of the 1998 Winter Olympics. Okay, on TV in our room. CBS had the American rights, but of course CBS had shitty television. Well, part of it had to do with the fact that the Winter Games were 16 hours ahead of the East Coast, and most of the events had already been played, and CBS really didn't have a lot of television coverage of it, so CBC was the better place for it. Okay, I already talked about Zabba Zabba. They're very expensive. My favorite part of the episode is at the very beginning when Peggy's watching Oprah. Says, "Just kidding. Today's topic: sluts who hang out at 7-Eleven." Okay, I'm the kind of person that likes to give. Okay, now this isn't. I have to admit, this is not my favorite Married Children. This is not my favorite anniversary episode. There's 3 episodes overall. 16 years and what do you get from season 1, 25 years and what do you get from season 9, and Agony and the Extra C from season 10. Of course, that third one focuses on the Darcys versus the Bundys. However, this one it's probably my least favorite out of the three, and for that reason, I am going to okay. I usually give an episode from season 9 at least a 4, but in this case, this one gets a 3.5 out of 5. Okay, there's a lot of continuity issues throughout the episode, and I was not, and the fact that I was not too fond of this compared to the 16th anniversary episode. I did like the end where Alan Pegg seemed to pretend nothing has ever happened when things got bad for the both of them. Okay, well apparently not necessarily for Peg, but she spent, but of course she wound up getting suckered into spending Al's anniversary present on a bunch of crap for herself. Meanwhile, Al actually tried to have it. Okay, he actually bought the present, but Buck stole it from him. Okay, so that is going to be my review for. Okay, that's my review for 25 years and what do you get? So before one thing I like to do now, I like to give a toast to my parents celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. May your anniversary be okay. May you have a very blessed anniversary, and may you have one several years of marriage down the road. Okay, and may you have many additional anniversaries to come as well. Okay, cheers. So my parents, they got married in a town called Youngstown, which is a small town up along the Niagara River, right by Lake Ontario, and about not even 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes to the north of Youngstown is Fort Niagara. My grandmother did a lot of volunteer work for Fort Niagara, and she was able to pull some strings to have my parents' wedding reception. Okay, so of course you had my mother and her sister and my parents. Okay, they all lived in the area, and then you had my father, his see, I think he had at least four brothers and one sister. He 4 or 5 brothers and one. He had 4 brothers and one sister. He also had his parents, and they were all from Pennsylvania. And then they basically all met together, and they one of my father's brothers wound up meeting my mother's sister at my parents' wedding. Okay, so without the wedding, neither of them would have gotten together. And these two apparently got married in like '77. I think it was around. I think they wound up getting married around '77, '78. Okay, but of course we don't. I've seen them. See, two or probably at least 2 or 3 3 or 4 times in my life. Okay, Florida. I've probably seen them like 4 times in my life. Okay, so I really don't know much about them, but what I do know is that they've been those that couple have been all over the country, considering that my uncle was a radio talk show host. Started off in Pittsburgh, then to Seattle, then to Miami, then to Cleveland, then to Austin, then to Tucson, and around the same time I moved to Tucson, they wanted up moving up to Vegas, where they are now in retirement, or so to speak. Okay. And as for my aunt, she wound up going into travel and tourism, partially because my grandmother had asked. Okay, basically at the request of my grandmother, who basically said that one day my daughter's going to run Fort Niagara, which she apparently never did. Okay, so okay, so at least some good things came out of the wedding. Since this, I have seen. Okay, I've actually seen my parents' wedding photo album. I have, although I have not seen it in over. Haven't seen it in the last 25 years. But for my parent, another a famous gift my parents got for their 25th wedding anniversary was a family portrait, free on the house, courtesy of the photography studio. Now, of course, the people. It was a guy and a. It was a guy and a lady, an older guy and older lady that ran. They were basically a married couple called the Simonsons that ran a photography studio in the village of Lucy, New York. They went to high. They both went to high school with my grandmother. So because of them, not only did they, not only did the Simonsons get assigned to do my parents' wedding photos, they also got assigned. They were also the only place where my parents were actually allowed to do um, portraits of one of us all. And of course, my grandmother was always insistent on the Simonsons doing business. She insisted on each of us having our own portraits done for one another each and every year. Okay, but of course they were a fun couple to be with. Um, although one thing I do remember having my pictures taken with these guys, had a hard time trying to smile. Okay, for the camera. So that's and of course the picture that they wind up going with for the official portrait, my eyes were closed shut, and they actually had to paint my eyes in before giving that portrait to my parents. And that's the one thing I do regret to my parents for that family portrait, having a hard time trying to smile for the camera. Okay, and hopefully it's one thing that I've literally outgrown. Okay, so that is all we have for today. We are going to be taking some time off. Mr. Wildcat, as you know, is on vacation right now, so he's going to be taking a short break from reviewing any further episodes of Married Children. He'll probably be back around the 1st September for another round of reviews. However, there will be a very special video coming up around the corner for all of you guys who are Arizona Wildcat fans. We're going to be taking a sneak peek into the upcoming season, which will eventually be Arizona's final season in the Pac 12 before joining the Big 12 for the 2024-2025 season. Now, of course, this upcoming season was originally supposed to be just a farewell to USC and UCLA, okay, which will be our final trip to the LA Memorial Coliseum while UCLA comes to Tucson for the last time. It is now turning into a farewell to the Pac and anybody else who will not be joining us. So I know this will turn into our final farewell not only to USC and UCLA, but also to Stanford, Washington, Washington State, and Oregon State as well. Because, Colorado and Utah and ASU and Arizona State will all be joining Arizona for the transfer over to the Big 12. But there's going to be a lot of work to be done to decide how it is going to be. Our new settlement in the new conference is going to be settled. So be on the lookout for that. Mr. Wildcat is reminding each and every one of you. So this is a farewell for now. Mr. Wildcat will be back shortly, faster than you know. And until the next time we meet, we're Mr. Wildcat here reminding each and every one of you to be good, be careful, and behave. Bear down.